In today's show, we're going to troubleshoot our production SharePoint problem, and then we're going to use Power Apps to fix it, and then we're going to use Power Automate to fix it because that's actually the better way to fix it. But we're just going to get a chance to kind of do a little bit of detective work and then talk about how to make some updates once I've figured out what's wrong with the data. Should be fun. But first, here's our intro. Hi, my name is Shane Young with Power Apps 911. Those guys. And today, we're going to troubleshoot some SharePoint data. So we have a leads list here that we use to manage all of our leads that come in, right? The scheduling, the sales, all that fun stuff. And so the PM team had built it and they've used it over time. It's evolved and it has some data inconsistency issues. So we're going to show you those. And then I'm going to show you how I'm going to use Power Apps to prove out what I thought was wrong with them, which is what's wrong with them, right? Extra spaces, basically. We need to do some trim. And then I'm going to talk to you about how to fix just one, how to maybe in Power Apps fix a bunch of them. And then we're going to use Power Automate to fix them properly and using the right tool, right? That's really where we should end up. So that's where we'll end up. It's real interesting because it is production data, so I get a little nervous as we start to mess with it. And you'll see that I go slow, which is what you guys should be doing also. Because let's be honest, as much as we love to talk about dev data versus production and testing and all this, a lot of times these types of fixes just happen in production and you just gotta roll up your sleeves, cross your fingers, and hope you did it right. So you're gonna see me go through that process with our production data and how slow I go to kind of keep validating that I'm getting it right. So, sound like fun? Let's switch over to my desktop and take a look. All right, so over here on the desktop, you can see the problem. Well, you can't yet, right? I've got most of the data board out. Remember, this is our production data, so I can't show you our customer names and all that, but what I can show you is the problem itself. And so the problem is when we go to filter this list. So when we work the list, we kind of work it via who is responsible for a given customer to kind of talk through the scenarios, right? So we kind of group it. And so if we go over here and we say, all right, who sent the quote? And we then hit the drop down here and we say we want to filter by, you get the little flyout. And so here you can see the issue, right? Look, there's 2 Aubreys, there's 2 Jennifers, there's 2 Nicolas, there's 2 Sarahs. Why, right? So that's our first question we need to solve for this team here is why is there 2 of these? And then we need to fix the problem. And if we look, right, so let's go out of this. Let's go to list settings for a second, right here under list settings. And then if we go over here and look, we can see that who sent the quote and statement of work and who's responsible for follow-up is a choice column. And in the choice column, we only have the specific people. We don't have duplicates, right? So how do we get duplicates over there? Well, remember that choice columns, while when you're using the SharePoint tools or using, directly, SharePoint forces you to choose, right? But if you're using some other mechanism to update that data, so whether it's like a Power App or a Power Automate flow, you can update and write values that aren't in the list. So that's one way that problem could have happened. What I really think happened though is I think that originally this list wasn't a drop down. I think this list was originally a text field that they changed to a drop down. I don't know. The PM team kind of does this themselves, so I don't own it, so I don't know what they do. If I look over here, like this all looks right. All right. So let's go investigate over in Power Apps and see if we can solve the problem. I'm almost positive I know what the problem is though. So we'll go to Power Apps. I've got a new app already open. And so we'll add that list to the data source. So add data. We'll search for our dear friend SharePoint. There you go. And then our connection there. When people ask, why do I have 3? It's just a me thing. You should only have 1 over there. And then internal. And then we should have the leads list. There we go. Just like we would hoped. So we'll say connect. And so then I'm going to throw the data into galleries. I like galleries. So a vertical gallery. We'll change the look to title, subtitle, and body without images. We don't have images with these. And then we'll change the data source to be leads list. All right, and so up here at the top, what I want to put is we're going to put the ID, right? Because we're going to want that in a minute. And then here in the description, we're going to put in this item dot who sent the quote. Now, you see the little underline, right? And Power Apps is like, hey, this is a record. I can't show a record. That's because it's a choice field, so it's a complex column. So what do? You use your shovel, your dot, and then you see dot value, and now we see all the values. Okay, And so looking at that quickly, they all look like they're very right. Now, I don't care about project type here. So what I thought about doing here, so let's just change this to this item dot who sent it again, dot value, because my sneaking suspicion is they have extra spaces. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go right here and I'm going to say do a len of this. And so that's going to give me the length and number of characters, right? And like if we look, so Jennifer has 8 letters, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, but the length is 9. My suspicion is going to be proven true here in a second. So we're going to put this here, and then we're going to put another label in here, and we're going to say, hey, you, I want, actually we want the same thing, so we'll just copy and paste that one. Easier than that way, right? Delete that one. But we want the len, but then I want to do a trim. Remember, trim removes blank spaces from the beginning and the end. And so Jennifer trimmed is 8. So that tells me there's a blank space either in the beginning or the end of her name. So if we play my app and roll through here, you'll see, look, Aubrey 7, 6, Sarah 5, 4. So that's why when we were over in SharePoint and it was showing us duplicate Aubreys, right? So we look over here to leads list. And then if we filter by who sent it again, right? So really what's happening here is there's an Aubrey and there's an Aubrey with a space. There's Jennifer and a Jennifer with a space at the end. But SharePoint doesn't visually show that, but that's what's causing this to show up because this is just showing you all the distinct or possible values for that. And so that's what's causing our issue. Yeah. Okay. So how could we fix this? Okay. So there's several different ways. And I'll cheat a little bit and kind of warn you, right? Like we're going to solve it some ways here in Power Apps, but really this is probably a problem we should solve in Power Automate. And we're going to show you how to do that in a minute. But just remember, one of the challenges that I have in my own life is, you know, when you have a hammer, everything looks like a nail. I am the best at Power Apps, like of my skill set, right? My best skill set is Power Apps. So anytime I have a problem, I'm like, man, I can fix that in Power Apps. It doesn't matter what the problem is. I'm like, I can do it with the Power App. True, it's probably usually not the best answer. So in reality, what I need to do is not be a wimp and go solve this problem in Power Automate. We're not going to do that yet. I want to solve it where I know what I'm doing first before we go over there. But just keep that in mind. This is a classic example of, you know, overdoing it, right? I shouldn't even bother looking at this in Power Apps, but we're going to because that's how you and me are going to learn. So to that end, how could I fix this one, right? Let's not concentrate on fixing all of them. Let's concentrate on fixing one. Solve small problems, right? One of the big mantras in my SharePoint training or all my training classes. So what are we going to do here? We're going to say patch leads list, which record, what would be this item, right? It's the item we're currently staring at. Nope, not this item created by, just this item, right? Because we want to fix Jennifer's record here. And so then we know whatever we're going to do is going to go in curly brackets, close that. So what do we want to fix? Well, what we want to do is we'll start to type in who. So who sent the quote? That's the field. And then really, what do we know? We just want that to be this trimmed out version, right? Should be all that goes in there. So let's copy that, paste that in here. Oh, it doesn't work. Why doesn't it work? If we hover, we're going to see the type of argument, who, blah, 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 blah. You can tell I didn't create that list because it's got spaces in the name. Boo. If you don't know why spaces are bad, check out the link above. But anyway, because it's a choice column, the expected type, sorry, I moved my mouse. I can't move the mouse. Does not match expected type record found type text, right? Choice columns are a complex column type. So when we update them, we have to update them in a complex way. Fair? Torture, but fair. So while this is the text value we want, we need to actually have it be one of the choices, right? It needs to match that record format. So what we're going to have to do is we're going to have to sculpt out the record. And so the easiest way to see what that record should look like, if you don't know, hopefully you guys already know at this point, right? But if we grab the drop down here and we said, hey, drop down, show me choices from leads list dot who sent the quote. And so this would be a drop down of all those same names we just saw in SharePoint, right? All that same stuff. I like it. Who sent the quote? Yep. And so then now if that's the choices that are in the SharePoint list, and we want to replicate one of these, right? So in this case, we want it to look like Jennifer. I'm going to select Jennifer. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab a label and I'm going to say, all right, drop down one, that's the name of our drop down, dot selected. Remember, selected, not selected text, selected is the record, right? It is the whole record. And we know selected dot value would give us Jennifer in 8 characters without the space at the end, I hope. I guess we should prove that. You want to do that real quick? Let's do that real quick. Put a line around that. 8, perfect, okay. But here's what I'm really after. If you select this is why we did this. If you highlight that and hit the drop down, that is going to show you the shape of the record it's expecting. So there's a column named value, and in that is Jennifer with 8 characters. So for us to get to that, how do we do it? So over here, where we're patching this complex column, we're going to have to write out that complexity, right? So it's a record. So records always start with curly brackets. And then column name is value. And then the text is whatever this trim blah, 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 blah puts out. And then we go right here and we close that record, right? So if we highlight this, just this portion, look, it makes a record. And the record, if Power Apps was being polite, would preview, it would look exactly like when we selected Jennifer's record a second ago. But the beauty of this being is that we now know they match. So I used this choices in this to kind of give myself a cheat sheet to be like, hey, this is what the columns are going to be. And once you've gotten used to the SharePoint complex columns, this is not hard, right? That makes a lot of sense. So let's test it out. Let's press this button and hopefully it'll reload. It's going to look exactly the same, but instead of being 9 and 8, it should be 8 and 8. So let's press the button, cross our fingers. Yay! So there you go. So that's how you would fix one, right? Fortunately, as a growing small business, right? We just passed 20 people, yay us. We have lots of leads. I don't want to go click that button hundreds and hundreds of times. So how would we now do this? Okay. So this is back to, like, we've solved it. We've proven we can fix it. We know that this would fix Jennifer in the dropdown. So we'd get away from having 2 Jennifers over there. We could just have 1. Once we fixed all the Jennifers, right? There's plenty of them in here. If we look, that Jennifer's broken. That Nicola's broken. That Aubrey's broken. That Sarah's broken. It looks like the original version of this list that they made was just completely always broken. And when they redid it to capture those choices, they did it correctly. But all these old records need fixed so that when they're searching, they don't have the Sarahs. How could I do this from a Power Apps point of view? Remembering that Power Apps is not the right place to do this, but if you don't care, you just want to do it from Power Apps, what might you do? Well, so probably the first thought that I would have is I'd be like, hey, what if I just did some type of ForAll and said ForAll the leads list as, let's see, as SP data. I'm going to do it like that. What do I want to do? I want to patch leads list. What record do you want to patch? It's going to be like this. It's going to be id:/spdata.id. So that'll make them match, right? And if you watch that video that talked about patching, you understand how that connects the dots well for us. And then what do we want to set it to? We want to set, what do we want to set? We want to set who sent the quotes. And then it's going to be that crazy format again, right? So value and then trim. But then it's not the whole like current one, right? So it's trim spdata dot who sent this thing dot value. We would then close the trim. We would close the little record. We would close the patches record. We would close the patch. We'd close the ForAll. And we would say, what do you think about this? Okay, so then you get an error right away, right? Because you can't update the list that you are ForAlling through on the fly. Boo, right? So what could we possibly do? In this particular case, I might put this data into a collection, right? Because we know that leads list is, in my case, less than the delegation limit. So we could say clear collect col list and then leads list. So that would put it into a collection. And then we would just grab this col list and we replace this portion. So it's doing the same thing, but now it's not trying to loop through a list that is changing on the fly, right? Because every time we do that patch, it's going to refresh. And this ForAll would take a long time to run, right? Because it's going to basically update the list, refresh the list, update the list, refresh the list. Like it's gonna be really, really, really slow. So this is not something we would want to actually do, but it gives you an idea of a way that we could do it. Remember, don't do it, but we could. And just to prove that it does work, though, let's go down here. And so if we look at Aubrey's record, so ID 5, so I put ID here, is a 7.6. So up here in our clear collect, we're just going to say filter leads list where ID equals 5. So we know that's going to return just one list item, right? Aubrey's. So Aubrey's item record will go into the collection. The collection will be then looped through our ForAll. So if we press the button now, we should see Aubrey's record update. Cross our fingers. This is production data. I'm kind of scared, but it's okay. Boom. So it ran and it just processed Aubrey's. Whew. Even though I knew that would be fine, it still freaks me out, right? Because if we look at col list, it just had one record for Aubrey. So we now know if we put them all in there, it would work. We don't want to do it, but it would work. So that would be one way we could have solved this. The third way we could do it would be to update the collection and then push the collection across the wire, which would be faster than the whole ForAlling. So remember we did this, we created that collection. So what if instead of creating the collection, or what if as part of creating the collection, we also updated the columns to all be correct and then push it back over the top? I don't know. We're not going to do that one because once again, I don't want you to do it here, but I want you to at least kind of think through how you might do it here. Because what we really want to do now is we want to switch over to Power Automate and see how that would work. So switch over there. All right, so we'll just click on the tab here. So we go in here, we'll say we'll do new. We're going to do an instant flow, and then we're just going to say manually trigger, because that's what I want to do. We're only going to run this once. And so we're going to say create. Probably should have given it a name while I was staring at that. Oh, I didn't click it. I can. SB column fix. Now we'll say create. Okay. So here, what do we need to do? We're going to need to do, first off, we're going to say, let's get all the things, right? So SharePoint, and then we're going to get items. From what site address, we know that that was called internal something right there. List name is leads list. And then, you know, obviously we could do any type of filtering, limiting, that type of stuff here. We're not going to, but we could. And so what would this do? This will loop through the items, right? Or this will get all the items, right? So one call gets a table. And so now we need to iterate through all of them to fix them, right? So what are we going to do? We're going to say new step. And we're going to say, hey, I want to get SharePoint is what I want to do. So SharePoint. And then now we want to update item. And from what site? Same site. Internal. List name is leads list. And so then for the ID here. So I'm going to say from the get items, I want an ID. But remember, when you do this, this is going to put and apply to each loop around it because we want to do this step one time for every record that comes back. So when we do that, it goes into here. Perfect. But then now it's like, all right, who's the customer? And so that is the only required field, so I've got to pass that again. I'm just going to pass the same exact value for customer. And then down here under who sent the quote and responsible. So here you can see the choices it's offering me here. But remember, we can't use these because we need to tie them back to what came through. So what I'm going to do instead, I'm going to say enter a custom value. And I'm going to say I need to do an expression. Under the string functions, click that, string functions, I believe there is a trim in this one. There is. So there's a trim. And so then for trim here, look, this is a function that works both the same in Power Apps and Power Automate. Yay! Not very many of those. And then dynamic content. Now, it's being a pain, right? It does not know how to show me what I want to see here. Okay? So let's just click out for a second. I'm going to go down here to any text field, right? So description's a text field. Put your cursor in the text field, any text field, and now say who sent the quote. And so this, if you hover, is items apply to each, who sent value. So this is how it digs down and gets the value, right? So the Sarah, the Aubrey, the Jennifer. So if I single click and then say Control C, that is now loaded that formula in my clipboard. So we're gonna get rid of that. Go back here to who sent the quote. Now your expression. Now our see more, we'll find trim again. And so right in here, you're going to hit the Control V. Now when you paste it in, there are three things you need to delete. There's an ampersand at the front and a curly bracket. So that's 2 characters, delete those. So it should be trim and then items. And then apply to each, and then whatever your column name is /value. And then after the square bracket, there is another curly bracket, this one right here. That's the other one you need to get rid of. So we're going to delete that one. Okay. So when you copy and steal formulas from Power Apps like that, it puts the little encasing there. And so we just got to get rid of the casing. But now if we say OK, now this will get all the items. For every item in that list, it's going to loop through once. And it's going to patch or update again. And it's going to just set the who sent the quote and is responsible to trim this. Okay. So if we go over, let's go look at our SharePoint list again. Or sorry, yeah, our SharePoint list. So we never did fix Sarah's, right? Let's just do a refresh, make sure we didn't get Sarah's fixed yet. So Sarah is still 5 and 4. So we know that's 6. So to make our testing go easier, or to be less stressful for me, because it's our production data. I can't stress that enough. Welcome to my world. I'm always working in production, it feels like. So here, I'm just going to say filter query, and I'm going to say ID EQ 6. So that should get just Sarah's record, right? So this is a way to get a single item. So ID equals 6. We'll say just give me 1 just in case somehow I screwed up. I didn't, but in case I did. So if I did this right, this should patch just Sarah's. So we'll say save. And then after forever, it finished saving. So we're going to say test, manually test down here underneath my face. And then we're going to say continue and run the flow both underneath my face. I'm not going to move. I didn't move my face. I was too lazy. You get the idea. Oh, and then done once again under my face as well. And finally, that ran really fast. It ran 1 time. It looks like it did Sarah's record. So if we go back over here to our app, all right, still 5.4, but we had to do a refresh in SharePoint to see the updates. Shoo! Sarah is 4.4. So bingo, bango. That works. Okay, so the reason that I'm talking to you about this and showing you the way to do it in Power Automate, right, which was harder for all of us, I agree, or maybe it wasn't, maybe it's easier for you. But the reason is because Power Apps is better at these large scale operations, right? Because the idea is that we're just going to trigger this flow, and then whether it takes 2 seconds to run like there it did, or 2 hours, the system is going to work through and do all the chugging, all the processing, right? Power Automate is better at this type of thing. Instead of me clicking the button over in the browser that we wrote there, like that ForAll, and having it run for 2 hours in my browser. And I'm not saying it's going to take 2 hours, but you get the idea, right? I don't want to keep the browser session alive. The ForAll is in my client, right? My PC staying connected for that whole time to do all that work. This type of activity is better done in Power Automate. Should be done in Power Automate. Always should be done in Power Automate. Like, I'm going to be brave now, and we're going to, like, I've tested, I feel like this works. So we're going to try to fix all of them. What do you guys think? I'm going to get rid of it all. I'm going to be less scared. You know what we're going to try? No, we're not. We're going to put 1 back here again. And so let's see who the next one is. So who was the next one? So Nicola. Okay, we're going to try this. Ready? Being brave. So I got to do the Odata query. I need to know the name of that column. So I'm going to go back over here to list settings. And if you hover over the column, look, if you look down here, okay, I need you to look down in the middle here. If you hover over the column name, this is why you shouldn't use spaces. Look, it is who underscore x0020 sent x0020 underscore the. Ugh, what a terrible column name. That is really difficult for me to type. Now I'm going to click on this, and I'm going to cheat because we all know I'm lazy. And so there it is in the top. So I'm going to copy this. I'm going to go back over to Flow. And I'm going to say filter query where that column, EQ, and then we want to do the string Nicola, so it's single quote, Nicola, space, because we know the space at the end is what's causing all the pain. So then that should find the first record where Nicola, where the space is written. So if we look over here, that should be record 7, right? And we told it only get the first one because we're still trying to take little steps, right? Because I'm still scared to death. This is production. So we'll just run our test run. We'll save and test. All right, after a couple seconds, it ran. Update item. Oh, it found apparently Nicola number 2 was broken. Let's go look. Oh, well, 6. Wait, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Oh, so it ignored the space. So it trimmed out the space for me. So it found it. So it updated hers. So if we do a refresh here, we should just see the same thing. Well, that's just dumb, right? So I guess the Odata query decided that even though I told it to get items where equals with a space, and look, if we click to download, let's just double check here. So looking in here, it got the one with ID 3. Wait, that's the wrong ID then. Oh yeah, there it is. ID right here, ID 2, wrong ID. Okay, So much for my safety testing. Then what we're going to do is, if we go back over here, so what if we ask Power Apps to filter leads list where who quoted this thing dot value equals Nicola with a space. What does it show us? So it also ignores the trailing space. So everything ignores the trailing space except for the SharePoint view, filtering the view over there. Well, that's rude. So there are lots of Nicolas here that need updated. Lots of them. All right. They just keep reloading. Good luck scrolling to the bottom, right? All right. Well, then in this case, I guess we're just going to be brave. So we're going to do edit. And so this query got 1. Let's do 10 because I'm still just trying to do this in baby steps. So we're going to say test the first 10. So we'll say save and test. So that's going to run for 20 seconds or something probably. And so if we go back over here, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So through Nicola's 30 record, they should all be updated when the flow is done. All right, that ran in 6 seconds. High five Power Apps or Flow, wherever you are. So what do? We refresh and look at that. Good, 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 good. Okay, there you go. So at this point, I feel like I have tested enough, right? So the last thing I'm going to have to do is just get rid of this. And so if we get rid of that, then we should be able to say, all right, that all looks good. So top count is nothing, right? So whatever number of records Nicola has, and let's just see how many she has in the process. We'll add a compose right here. And so then in the compose, we're going to put, I want the length. So for them, instead of count rows, they use length over here. And so the length of the value, and that'll be the number of records that come back. So that'll just give us a hint as to how many Nicolas we do. So we're going to say save, and we're going to test and test and test. All right, and so this is going to run, I mean, I don't know how many records she has, but not for terribly long. But so this should update all the Nicola records to be the correct value. So then once the next time SharePoint indexes that column or indexes that data set, then in the little filter by, there, instead of being 2 Nicolas, there should just be 1 Nicola going forward, which is exactly what they want to get rid of all of their data problems. So, and keep in mind, right, we switched over here to do some Power Automate. We could do some Power Apps. I could do all of them at once if I wasn't a chicken. But the idea here is that, you know, Flow is better at these long running operations, right? You don't want to do this type of bulk update in Power Apps. Also, if you had the skills, I could do this in PowerShell would have been another way to do it. And then there's also ways with the HTTP action and batching and stuff that you could do it. Look at that, less than a minute to update all the Nicolas. All right, are you scared? I'm scared. I'm not really scared. I'm a little nervous. I hate making data updates like this. All right, let's go over here. Let's refresh. So let's refresh. And now if we scroll through some of the Nicola records, look at that. They're all 6s. Oh, I think we did it, folks. Oh, this morning while I was editing, there's a lot of edits. That blurring is a pain in the butt. Anyway, I found a minor detail that I missed. And I just wanted to, I hate when, creators of these videos leave out little things. So I want to throw this back at you. So when I did the apply to each, right? So this is left off. This is the test run where we did the, where it equals Nicola. And so I said, oh, it did them all, right? Because I went scrolling through, I thought it did. But if you look at the apply to each, it actually only did the first 100, right? And the reason for that is get items by default only gets the first 100 items. If you want it to paginate, you've got to change the setting. So what I really need to do to get all of the Nicolas would be to edit this, go back here to get items. And so then now we would expand this out and we would say settings here. We would turn on pagination, turn this on, and then threshold of items to return. And so this number, it's going to get them back in, don't quote me on it, but I want to say it's like chunks of 256. I don't remember the number, but you want to make sure that this number is bigger than the number of records. So in this case, I'm expecting, 500 Nicolas. So I'm just going to go ahead and set this to 500. And so then now it will, instead of just getting the first 100, it will paginate through in the blocks until it gets over the threshold. And so that will get them all right. So just that quick little change to the pagination, and then we'll say done. And so then now if I hit test again, and then, rerun this test right 19 hours ago, you can see when I made the video, and then we do a save and test here, this is going to run, and this is going to do all of them. I'll do the 100 that we already updated. We saw that, but then it'll get the subsequent one. So it'll take a little bit longer. So hang on. Well, here, there's enough, right? So you can see there's 171 records. So there wasn't just 100, there's 171 Nicolas. And so by putting it to 500, which was bigger than her data set, it got back all of her matches. So now when we're done, it'll truly be complete and all 500 or all 171 Nicolas will be updated, and I won't have any more of those orphan datas. All right, so back to the original video. I just thought this was an important step if you have larger data sets to share with you. All right, that is enough stress for this guy for one day, right? So I'm gonna go fix the rest of them. I'll go back and rerun the whole thing, just not while I'm recording, so I don't have to be clearly as nervous as I am. Hopefully you enjoyed this. Hopefully this gives you some ideas, like food for thought, and kind of going through the process was as much about, or was as much the lesson here as actually doing it. If you like this type of stuff, remember I've got training classes over at training.powerapps911.com. I have live training classes. I have on-demand training classes. We do consulting projects where we do this type of stuff for you, right? We have lots of ways to help you. Also, as you have other creative ideas that you want to share with people, how you would have done this, put them in the message or the comments below, right? Everyone likes to read those comments and see what you guys are doing, not just hearing from me all the time. So it should give you some cool ideas. Yeah, and I think with that, I'm going to say thanks and have a great day. Hey, me again. Before you go, click on the subscribe button, right? Join the list of 100,000 plus people that have subscribed already. Or if you need any help, right? Check us out at Power Apps 911. We do big projects, little projects. We do training. We do everything, and we can help you. Or if you want to see more videos, you probably do, then just click on the playlist above. Cool? Thanks, and have a great day.